Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and I thank all of you once again for tuning into yet another reaction video here on Jimmy Frank. And well, as this year has sort of begun, you've started to notice a little bit of a pattern of, well, I do like me some Iron Maiden. And throughout the course of videos I've done on all of my channels, Iron Maiden has popped up every so often in some capacity. Now, considering this is where we've done things from the 80s, from the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and now we're actually moving into the 2020s. Specifically from 4 years ago, but goodness me, I'm extremely behind the times, to say the least. But then again, it was mostly because I wanted to catch up to speed with just about everything that Iron Maiden had to offer. And to be honest, I kind of also want to make it a thing by the end of this year. I want to be able to cover like almost the entire discography of the likes of Metallica, Iron Maiden, Slayer. There's like a load of other guys I want to be able to just completely do from start to finish. Because at this point, in doing all of these videos, I think to myself, yeah, you know what, as much as I love them, I do sort of want to talk about other guys in their entirety as well. But that's just sort of how that is. So with that being said, we move on to Senjustu, which I believe this is... it's obviously... It does look more a lot like a Japanese shogun, perhaps, because I thought that... Maybe it was supposed to be a bit more like Yonsu Yun. I know he was sort of like some sort of ancient figure from like Chinese warfare. I'm only saying these things, and excuse me for sounding like an absolute friggin' idiot. But I mean, a game that I currently play on my phone is the game Rise of Kingdoms, which, for those who don't know, I'll just make this very quick. You can actually select to start an entire civilization based on a specific figure from history, and the game gives you over 25 different champions actually that you can hold, and you can start your own civilization centered around. And ironically, I chose the Viking legend Bjorn Ironside as my figurehead for my civilization, which deals with a lot more things like Ragnar Lodbrok, and you get to train specific like warriors like berserkers, which, well, considering that I'm actually watching the series Berserk at this moment in time, it seemed almost like it was meant to be together. Now, I mentioned all of this about ancient warfare because I heard that apparently Senjustu, the actual song itself, actually has a lot to do with ancient warfare, which should be a very, very interesting like addition to Iron Maiden's repertoire, because Iron Maiden has talked about war many times in the past. They've also talked about ancient leaders like Genghis Khan and Alexander the Great before, but I also, well, at least the ones that I know of so far, because there's bound to be more, but I also just want to hear what they can do with such a remarkable idea. With that being said, this is also... I know I've harped on before about Iron Maiden albums that actually open up with elongated songs, and I'm sort of kind of like beyond that trend anyway. Well, they can just about do what they like. They don't need my permission, but let's just see how this goes, eh? So, here we are. Senjustu. So here we go. In your own time, boys. Oh, that is badass. So... that sound just the thundering of drums. It sounds like Hannibal Barca, literally with his elephant standing at the very top of the Alps overlooking the entire Italian Roman Republic. It sounds like the sound of Hannibal ready to slay an entire civilization. Many conquerors throughout history, Alexander the Great, Genghis Khan probably also, but this one has it's the intimidation factor of being high up as though something monstrous is coming.
Repel from the north. Keep out nomads who come from the plains. Northern wastelands are washed with them all. Rocking the tribes that invade from the south of us. Round to the cold. We can hear far away on the sound of distant drums.
Now, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That was Senjustu from Iron Maiden. And first of all, two things that I actually almost forgot to inform you guys about. First of all, I didn't even realize that this was their 17th album. Studio album that came from Iron Maiden, which means that, well, hey, listen, if I want to get through the entirety of Iron Maiden's discography, we've still got at least, when we finish Senjustu, we've still got 15 more albums to go, so bring it on, as they say. Second of all, Senjustu actually very loosely translates to tactics and strategy, which makes sense because this is absolutely a song centered around warfare, and specifically how do you suppose soldiers and mercenaries would defend themselves during what I know they don't necessarily specifically state a date for any point in particular, but if I had to make a suggestion, it almost looks like something that would have been established in the days maybe of the Ming Dynasty. I know Ming is technically Chinese, but I don't really know what comparable phrase I could relate to in terms of Japanese place and time. I think it's because the steel the steel that they use for their to block their arms, and even the sort of the wrist gauntlets, they look like a relatively modern invention, and even the way that this blade is serrated looks far more done through an experienced and more educated blacksmith, and everything looks a little bit more 19th century, if that makes sense. It looks a little bit more modern, but then again, that's me judging it based on Evil Eddie wearing armor. So this could be exactly, I don't even know where it's meant to go, or maybe that's just the whole point. But I also like I said, the drums in the beginning, which I suppose they were meant to sound a little bit like is it Takayo drums, I believe, because it sounds daunting. The fight is literally taking place at dawn, and there's there was also an element to this song that I felt I was too stupid to mention, because one thing that actually came straight to my mind, ladies and gentlemen, something that how on earth am I supposed to express this without looking stupid? It kind of almost reminded me of an opera, almost like a play of soldiers raring for battle. The battle is about to begin, and we have to talk about, well, how are we going to fight ourselves? The fight would break out into people singing and then basically destroying the Hun from every direction. So it's one of those songs where I think it's enhanced by the fact that there is a genuine sense of there's atmosphere, there's tone, there's a very unique sense, a unique feeling of cohesion, which is not really a phrase I bring up often with Iron Maiden, probably because it didn't really need to be mentioned one way or another. But it sounds like everything relates back to the idea that this is meant to be a war, like an army at war, and what consequence that they throw you into it through language of how do we stop them from the south, and we must fight to protect the wall. I love that about songs like this. It brings you into its world. It's not songs that are just sort of already thrown into a world, if that makes sense. Because there are songs out there, ladies and gentlemen, that are centered around the idea of existing completely almost on their own. And then there are also songs that are centered around the idea of they create their own worlds, and you can just get involved in them. And bear in mind, Iron Maiden has also strongly appealed in the past to those who like their history. And Iron Maiden is not short of history anytime soon, both within the band's 45-year history and when they are even writing about history. So this is not exactly what you call old hat for Iron Maiden. And if honestly, I was almost going to say probably maybe the worst part about Senjustu, ironically, was maybe Bruce Dickinson himself, because it sounds like half the time it's like he's like kind of straining his words, and I don't know whether like there were some parts where they need to be deeper, as though like there was a different character speaking. But I suppose for maybe a more cohesive narrative, like maybe from a narrative perspective, it makes more sense. But then again, like I said, I have to judge these songs for what they are as opposed to what they're not. And Senjutsu really gets the ball rolling. In fact, it gets the ball rolling, it sets it on fire, it lobs it at the Hun, and we are victorious. Again, I have no idea whether or not the Japanese ever considered, well, whether at war with the Hun. But again, it's the only thing I could think to compare it to. My history of like, even like, like early to modern like Japanese warfare is quite slapdash, to say the least. But with all that being said and done, I hope each and every one of you have enjoyed our first video into Iron Maiden Senjutsu, and I cannot wait to see all of you guys again in the next video. So take care, and bye-bye for now.